of the Board Game Geek podcast, where we geek out about board games, the mechanisms behind them, and the people who create them. I'm your host, Candice Harris, and I'm here today with Mike Murphy from the Brothers Murph. How's it going today, Mike?
It's going so very well. Thank you for having me. I'm a little jealous that Nick got to be on the show first, but being a new dad, my schedule is crazy. I'm happy to finally be here and share in the love of board games with you.
I am so happy to have you here. Yeah. And I know, wait, Nick is the younger brother too, right?
So really I feel like I should have had like first priority for being on the podcast as the older brother, but you know what? Listen, I had to let him have it, and he got to be on it first.
Well, I am the youngest child in my family, so that's probably why I naturally gravitated towards Nick first. But I'm so happy to have you here today. What is new with you two?
Oh my gosh. So it's been a busy start to the year. Like every year you kind of flip over the calendar. You're like, January, let's just ease into the new year. Yeah. And it's always the most busy month of everyone's doing Kickstarters, and Board Game Geek, the work we do with Board Game Geek has been just off the charts.
Yes, so, busy.
I've been hanging on. I've just been sort of like still trying to remember to write 2023 instead of 2022 amidst all the craziness. So it's been busy. How about for you? What's new in your camp?
I mean, same. It's been a busy year already. I can't believe we are approaching February. At the time we're recording this, we're just, a few days away from February, which is crazy to me also. But yeah, so I actually did something new in the gaming realm recently.
Okay.
I've talked about this on the podcast before, but I got into this TCG, this trading card game called Flesh and Blood recently. And it just has me so hooked still. It's kind of like a hero battler game where you do this deck building, and every hero kind of is very distinct and has its own play style. And it's just really, really, really cool. And so I decided with my friend Jordan, we were like, let's go to one of these ProQuest events. So they do these different competitive events where, I think it's something like when people were still compete in Magic the Gathering and stuff like that, and you can make money. And I knew, I was like, I'm probably going to pay $40 to just go get whooped.
Yeah.
and I did. But I got some pizza out of it. And also I met some really cool people, and I learned a lot, and I did lose all of the games I played except for the one where my opponent never showed up. So I do have one win in the books.
There you go. Boom. You got something on the record now. Yeah. Something to build off of.
Exactly. But yeah, it was a really cool experience because I've never competed in anything with board games or card games or anything like that. And I was nervous.
It's another level. Yeah,
totally.
It's something to be into a game, whatever that might be, and TCGs and really lend themselves to people that learn high level play.
Oh yeah,
and I imagine it's cool because, like you said, you got to find a few more members of the community, and then I wonder for you if it's like you see people doing stuff and you get to learn so much about I did not think about this aspect of the game or this synergy between cards or how to use this character. So that seems really fun. That's worth $40 to me.
Totally. And it was just really exciting to be in a room with 50 people that were all super hype about this game the way I'm hype about it. And they were all, everybody was really cool. They're helpful and understanding. Like when you're, I'm like, hey, I've never done this before. I've only been playing for a little under a month. I'm a rookie, but I'm here to just dive in. And it was
so
cool.
It was It's cool to find. Yeah, it's cool to find a welcoming environment there as well, because I feel like it can be intimidating to jump into. So it's nice if the people were cool. You're like, all right, nice. This isn't such a scary thing to jump into and embrace even further.
Totally. And it was also kind of funny related to the podcast. I met this guy, Colin, there, who during one of the breaks in between games, he came up to me and he was like, are you from the Board Game Geek podcast? Because he recognized my voice. And I was
that's
like,
awesome. You're like, I am the podcast.
It's just kind of wild because I know, you know, people, if I go to a board game convention, there will be some people that recognize me because of the way I look. You know,
Sure.
I've never had somebody like hear my voice across the room and not necessarily know what I look like.
Yeah, follow the sound of your voice though.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. So that was kind of pretty cool. But anyway, so yeah,
that's another level.
That's kind of what's new in my world, or what was new recently.
Very cool.
Thank you. But today we're going to talk about board games with elevating art. You know, like games where the art is so good and so fitting that it enhances the experience of playing the game, you know? Like where you kind of like naturally associate the art and the gameplay.
Absolutely. Those are always the best when they are inseparable from each other. Those are always really fun. That's why I wanted to talk about this topic. I think that it's one of the best things you can do for a game is to have art that just kind of takes it to the next level.
Totally. And I know like you and Nick play a ton of games all the time. So I'm very curious to see like if we're going to have like crossovers, or if I'm going to like, you know, maybe learn some new, get me to buy some more games.
Hey, yeah, that's always my favorite thing to hear. It's just like, dang it, you made me spend money now. And I'm like, well, sorry, I like what I like. And if you think you like it, that's great.
Totally. But before we start discussing board games with elevating art, I'd love to hear what you've been playing lately, Mike. So let's jump into fresh plays.
Fresh plays. So I played a couple things recently that I've really kind of, well, one's kind of new to me, and one is one I haven't played in a while, and I kind of remembered. So a game that's new to me that's really fantastic. I picked up right at the end of the year and didn't have a chance to play it until the new year here, is Paperback Adventures. So this is a game loosely related to Paperback, which is a kind of a word spelling game ultimately. We're going to have cards that have a bunch of letters on them. You're going to try to assemble the kind of best word you can. Paperback Adventures turns that kind of concept into, you can play it 1 or 2 player, but mostly it's a solo game from Fowers Games and Tim Fowers and Sky Larson.
Oh, cool.
This turns it into a kind of boss battling adventure game where the words you spell, you can either splay to the left or the right to get a bunch of icons that will help you deal out damage or give you defense and block and stuff like that. And it's very much inspired, and openly so, inspired by Slay the Spire, which is a game that I really enjoy. So you're going to be getting better cards, upgraded cards. You can get MacGuffins, which are kind of like relics that give you kind of game-breaking powers. And you kind of go against harder and harder lackeys and then bosses as you travel through books. You are the kind of theme of the game is that you're a writer with writer's blocks. You're thinking up like different adventures, and that's the thing that you're doing. But you're spelling using words to kind of power up attacks. It's super cool.
That sounds awesome.
It's so fun and so weird and different. And I love Slay the Spire. And so a game that's like so, you know, uses so much of that DNA into like a word spelling game. It's just like epically fun.
Yeah.
It's so cool.
Whoa, that sounds really cool. And I think I do remember Paperback as well. Is that a deck builder?
Yeah, it's like a deck building kind of word spelling game. Yeah. So it takes a lot of those elements, the art style and everything like that, and kind of turns it into splay the spire, they say, where it's all about when you develop a word, you splay to the left or the right to get certain icons and to be able to buy stuff. There's so much fun. There's different characters you play as. You have like a kind of a core box, and then each of the 3 characters have different kind of focuses, different kind of I played the damsel who does a bunch of like poisoning of people and stuff like that. It's really fun, and I like kind of like word spelling games. And so it's been perfect to play, and as a solo game you kind of sit there and just think about what you want to spell and what you want to do with that word.
That is awesome. And it sounds very, very different too. I'll have to check that out.
Yeah, it's really fun. It's a good kind of solo adventure. That's Paperback Adventures. But what's something that you've played recently?
Oh my goodness. So I think it was Tuesday night. I went to a game night with the folks from the Game Brain podcast, And and I ended up playing my good friend Ben broke out Brick and Mortar. And Brick and Mortar was a game that he's talked about. I didn't hear, I might have heard some other people talk about here and there, but it's a 2021 release from Nicholas J. McCullum. And I believe his publishing company, Octoraph Games, like octopus and giraffe.
8-headed giraffe game, yeah.
It's a supply and demand market manipulation game for 2 to 4 players where we're basically like retail investors. We're opening different shops in our own neighborhood and we're trying to supply them with inventory. Then we're trying to sell that inventory and make as much money as we can. So then we can buy victory points and hopefully win the game. Yeah, but it's cool because each player has their own player board that is like, kind of representing your block in a neighborhood. And it's got a space for these 4 kind of oversized shop cards. And there are all these different types of shops. And there are, I think it was 5 different types of goods. Like you could have food, clothing, electronics, jewelry, or art. And they're, different colors. And the goods are actually just represented with like little wooden cubes.
Sure.
But each round you play through, I think it's like 8 different phases. And you just keep going until the end of the game is triggered. Either when this calendar kind of hits the end of the year, or if one player hits 35 points, that also kind of trigger the end of the game.
Okay. It's a little bit of a race to that threshold then. Yeah.
Oh yeah, totally. So like the first thing you do each round is you can build. So you'll have a hand of shop cards that you start with, but there's also like a card market that has, I think, like 5 face-up shops. And you could either just pay the cost and build one from your hand onto your player board, or if you want one of the ones in the card market, you have to bid for it. So whatever the starting cost is, like maybe it's a $10 jewelry shop. If I want that jewelry shop, I say, I'm going to bid on this for 10. And then it goes around the table and people can, they can just screw me over if they want and upbid it because they know I want it, or or maybe they want it and we're like really in a bidding war. But yeah, so everybody gets the opportunity to build an extra building in the building phase. Then there's like this advertisement phase where you have these market cards, and these market cards are small cards that have a certain amount of squares representing different goods. So you might have like 4 green boxes, meaning that's 4 food, and two yellow boxes underneath. That means it's 2 jewelry. And what you do is everybody has a screen that you use mainly just for this phase, but you're going to take 2 of those cards and you're either going to put them face up and or face down behind the screen. So you have like a hand of, I think you might have a hand of 4 or 5 cards that you're choosing from. And if you put the card face down, that means it's going to be a demand card. And we're not going to reveal until it's time to sell goods, like what people's demand cards are. And if you put it face up, that means it's going to be supply, which is going to help supply all of our stores, all of our shops, before we sell. So, or you could put them both face down, or you could put them both face up. It's kind of up to you. And then when everybody's done that, simultaneously we reveal.
What'd everyone do?
Yeah, exactly. And then there's like a supply phase where you'll take anybody who had face up cards. You'll just kind of supply the main board. There's an area, I guess you can consider it like a warehouse or something for each of the 5 different types of goods. So, like I said, if I had a card that had 4 green boxes and 2 yellow, I'm going to put 4 cubes in the food section. I'm going to put 2 yellow cubes in the jewelry section. Then after everybody does that for any of their supply cards, then we're going to supply our shops. So our shops can hold a certain amount of different types of goods. There's some shops that maybe have clothes and electronics, and some that just have food. It just kind of depends. And all the shops, like they have different effects, and there's lots of cool stuff with the the strategy of choosing which shops to have. But then basically what happens is, let's say everybody at the table has a food shop, and we all have room to take 3 food cubes, but there are only a total of 2 food cubes out there. Then we all have to take our little player dials and we have to pick a price higher than what you would normally pay. Well, you don't have to go higher. Like, say, for example, like the food, usually, like if you buy from the supplier, it costs $1. Well, now that there's not enough supply for all of us, we have to secretly decide how much we're going to pay to do that. And then we reveal, and then whoever picks the highest is going to actually get to go first. Like, there's a priority order for getting to do it. So not everybody will get to do it. So anyway, then you go to a selling phase and you reveal the demand cards. And the demand cards now, they have boxes. And this is what the customers want. So if you and I both, I'll give you an example. So my friend Paul and I, we both had jewelry that we were trying to sell. And he was in a position where he just really needed money, and jewelry pays 18 usually if there's enough demand, and you could just sell it for $18, which is huge. But
big time.
But because of the way we played our demand cards, there was only demand for one jewelry. So him and I had to take our little dials and say, how much are we going to sell our jewelry for? And whoever, whoever picked the lowest is going to get to sell first. So it was so stressful. And I went back and forth in my head, how low do I make this so that I make some money, but that I beat Paul? Because if I did not sell my jewelry, I didn't mention this, but your shops have an aging process. So each round they kind of tick down, and I was going to lose that jewelry. It's worth $18, you know?
Oh, man, this thing's been collecting dust on the shelf for too long.
Exactly.
You got to move that product.
Exactly. That's exactly what it is representing thematically. So anyway, we reveal our dials, and I set mine to 10, and Paul did 11. So
wow.
I got
you guys
to
are both
sell.
Going for a deep discount.
We went for deep discounts, and we both kind of sat there for 2 or 3 minutes trying to figure out what is he gonna do? How we were so close, but in the end, I ended up getting to sell my jewelry. So then you age your goods, and you have to pay maintenance on your buildings. But then at the end of the round, you get the opportunity to spend money for points. So there's a conversion. I think if you spend $4, you can get 1 point, and then $10, you can get 2 points or whatever. But that is the only opportunity you have to really buy points. But you have to be thinking about, I need money next round to buy supplies so I can sell again. So it's there's a lot you kind of have to factor in. But anyway, it was just so cool. I love the player interaction in it. It kind of reminded me of Arkwright Light. I don't know if you've ever played Arkwright before.
I have not, but it's
really good.
If it's like this, I'm interested.
It's really good. It's hard, and it takes a lot longer to play from my one experience.
Sure.
But yeah, this is brick and mortar. So I assume you haven't tried. Yeah, I assume you haven't tried.
No,
it yet.
But I want to. I love the idea of. I'm not always super into high player interaction, but this kind of thing with markets and stuff. It's not directly you're not having direct conflict per se.
Right.
I love the idea of I'm just going to undercut your business by selling this jewelry for nothing, you know? But you need it to make some sense for you because you had to pay to get it. So I love decisions like that where you're I guess I can go here with this, but I really need the money. And I'm just looking at it now and I love the look of it. But the whole, everyone playing stuff to a general supply, and maybe there's a lot of juicy decisions there. I don't want to give a bunch of electronics if I'm not selling any. I don't want to flood the market with this for everyone else, So there's some interesting stuff for sure.
Yeah, so then there's the whole hand management thing of, well, which cards, which advertising or market cards do I play? Because sometimes you do, to get what you want out there, you have to put stuff. Ben ended up being the only person with an electronic shop for the first half of the game. And there kept being electronics. So he would make $48 selling his 4 electronics.
No competition whatsoever. It's full price, baby.
Yeah. So anyway, I just thoroughly enjoyed it. And I ended up the next day, telling my partner Matt about it, and I told my friend Jake about it, and I was like, wow, I really like this game. Like, you know, the more I'm telling stories about what happened, like we had a great time playing it. So I ended up buying it for myself. A little,
nice.
a little treat yourself. I haven't bought a game in a while, and I've been trying to kind of cull my collection. Yeah. Treat myself to one.
I'm looking at it now. I'm gonna try to track this down. This seems super awesome.
I think you'll dig it.
Yeah, the whole kind of market manipulation type stuff is not as fun in real life, but in here, you know, there's no one's actually getting hurt by it, so it's kind of a good time.
Yep, for sure. So that's Brick and Mortar. What else have you been playing lately, Mike?
All right, so I talked about I was playing something new, then a game that it hasn't been that long since I played it, but it's been a minute, was Tawantinsuyu, the Inca Empire, and specifically the Golden Age expansion, which offers up, I think, 4 modules you can play with. There's kind of a reconfigured solo mode and then a few other modules to kind of add to the game, add some layers, add some different things to kind of consider. So Tawantinsuyu is one that it's from Board and Dice, and it was out in 2020 from David Turtzi. And Tawantinsuyu was one that when I first came across, and I played it on like Tabletopia, which for me sometimes can be good, and sometimes I just can't quite grasp what I'm doing because it's in the digital space and stuff. And so I played it and I was completely overwhelmed. David Turtzi has a mind that's just on a different level, made like anachrony and stuff. Like, I don't know. That dude can see numbers and stuff in a way that I just don't understand. So you see this board in Tawantinsuyu that's like got 1,000,001 options of where you can place your different workers and all these symbols and things. And when I finally got to play it physically, and you have the cards in hand, which will tell you like you're going to play this god card, which gives you a certain symbol. And then it kind of starts to make more sense about, you can start to see what your options are a little better. So over the last couple years now, playing Tawantinsuyu, it's kind of risen the ranks to become my favorite of what we would call like the T games from Board and Dice, right? Teotihuacan and stuff is also way up there for me. But this one for both my brother and I has just really gotten a hold of us. It's so fun to play. You are placing these workers out onto what is ultimately this big hill. And you have your kind of high priest at the top of the hill, and they're kind of moving around in a little mini rondel. And then you can place your workers out on these kind of different sections of the hill and stuff, so long as you can pay the food cost, because if they go all the way to the bottom of the hill, I guess we'll call it a mountain. It's quite a ways away for them to walk. So they need food for their journey all the way down the mountain. And you are trying to build up resources, build buildings. There's a temple track you can work up. There's, you can do little conquests against kind of neighboring nations and stuff in a very abstracted kind of way. And it's just really fun to try to figure out like how to eke out as much as you can with a meager amount of resources. And the expansion adds some really fun stuff where the color of workers you put out matters. If you have a white worker, a little white colored meeple, it's like a priest, and they can do like a bonus action, and you can, pay a potato to do another task and stuff that's surrounded by where you place your worker and things like that, and stuff like that. And in the expansion, you have these like hybrid workers, so now they're 2 colors. So when you place them, you get to choose which color they are.
That's cool.
Which gives you even more ways to kind of work everything. Yeah. So like stuff like that, I'm like, oh, this is awesome. It's like more flexibility. And there's a whole new building type, which you can put those, you can populate with meeples. So it helps you get those colorful, the multicolor workers and stuff. And so in a game that already is not hurting for options, now there's even more stuff to consider, but it wasn't overwhelming. And so I was like, man, how did you do that? Where it's just like, kind of to me with expansions, they're always the best if it's kind of like you can take it or leave it.
Right.
Like if you didn't want to get the multicolor workers in the game, you're not going to be hampered. You're not going to like not be able to win.
Right.
So it can engage with it as it makes sense for you and your brain and your kind of thought process. Which I was like, that is so nice. Thank you for doing that, because this game has plenty enough for my little feeble brain to kind of like focus on. But it just reminded me like why I enjoy it so much. It's just, there's 1,000,001 things going on, but they all fit together nicely in a way that is somehow understandable. And I'm like, sure. I don't know how you did that, where I can follow this when seemingly there's a million different things to track. So I think it's quite a feat. So Tawantinsuyu, the Inca Empire, and that new expansion is just chef's kiss. It's just why it's my favorite tea game, I guess, right there.
That's cool. And did the expansion just come out last year, or when was?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the expansion came out this last year. So we picked it up also at the end of the year at PAX Unplugged. So it's fairly new, and I think it's now kind of available in stores and things, but I think that's only kind of recently, because obviously in the last few years there's been so many kind of production delays, shipping delays and stuff, but it's out there now, which is one I highly recommend. If you like Tawantinsuyu, get that expansion, and it's just more to explore, and you can add in as many or few modules as you want. So again, it's kind of add the parts you dig, ignore the parts you don't.
Sure. I love modular expansions. Yeah.
Yeah, it's great.
This is one where I think I had the same first experience as you on Tabletopia. And I remember liking, but I also, like, right at the same time, Tekkenu came out. And I just ended up playing more Tekkenu, and I really don't have much experience with this one. I love David Turtzi's games, and it's just, this is kind of like something I've been wanting to jump back into, because I really liked what I saw, but I think for whatever reason, because of timing and whatever was going on in my life at the time both these games were coming out, I had just focused more on Tekkenu. But you are making me want to bust this one back out and revisit it.
It's the best.
Cool.
I definitely played a lot of Tekkenu early on as well, but then now Tawantinsuyu is taken over, and it's here to stay.
Very, very cool. So I also recently played Twilight Struggle Red Sea Conflict in the Horn of Africa.
Okay, tell me about that.
Yeah, so are you familiar with Twilight Struggle?
I am. So is this an expansion, or is this like a standalone situation? I had not heard of this specific version.
This is a standalone kind of zoomed in scope version that is in GMT Games' lunchtime series, where they're doing these like kind of quick playing, low complexity games where you can play this in an hour. So, and this is also, by the way, designed by Jason Matthews, published by GMT Games. I think it was released in 2023, or maybe it was technically out at the end of 2022.
Okay. It's brand new then.
It's super new. And if you're not familiar with Twilight Struggle, because this is kind of like a mini-me version of Twilight Struggle, but it's a card-driven political historical strategy game. Twilight Struggle plays with 2 players, but this version, Red Sea, can play solo as well. And and so and just to also shout out, the original Twilight Struggle was designed by Ananda Gupta and Jason Matthews together. There was a co-design, and that came out in 2005, and it just kind of rocked people's worlds, because I'm pretty sure it was number 1 on BGG for a while.
I think it was right up there. And where is it now? It's still way up there in the top 100.
It is a great game, but it's like, it's
at 14, so it hasn't slid very far.
Okay. It's an incredible game, but not everybody has the stomach for a game that could take more than 3 hours easily. More than 3 hours. So I'm really glad that they made this version that you can kind of get the Twilight Struggle experience in an hour.
That's so cool. I am one of those people that I don't have a lot of experience with like kind of war games and stuff. I have played Twilight Struggle once, and it wasn't my favorite, simply because it is long and it is tense.
It's tense.
You know what I mean? It's not like 3 hours of like chilling and going for a stroll. It's like, no. You got to pay attention. So I'm really excited at the prospect of something that gives you that feeling game wise, but shortens it down and makes it a little less it's
more digestible. It's more digestible. So this version takes place in 1974. Again, it's still the Cold War, and I guess there was a socialist military coup in Ethiopia that kind of shook alliances and strategic balance in the Horn of Africa during the Cold War. And one player is going to play as the US, and the other player is going to play as the Soviet Union, and you only play 2 turns in this game. You only play 2 turns, and the goal is to have the most victory points, but it could actually end earlier, like if somebody gets to 10 points, or if the DEFCON track gets too low where, one player caused a nuclear war, the other player wins.
Right.
And there are also like these scoring phases that get triggered. So when the Africa scoring phase triggers, if one player has control of a certain set of different countries, you can automatically win the game that way too.
Interesting.
But the general flow of the game is, so I said 2 turns. Each turn, you're going to start with a hand of 9 cards. And these cards are mostly event cards. Like they'll have an event on them and they'll have an ops value. And some of them are going to be US events. Some of them are going to be Soviet Union events. And some of them are going to be neutral, which, either player could technically trigger. And then they'll have an ops value or operation points value of like, I think it ranges from 1 to 3, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
But you're going to be playing cards on your turn, and you're either going to trigger the event on the card if it's with your faction or your country, or you can use the ops value, which, like, if I use an ops 2, I can spend that to do something else, like beef up my influence in a country, or try to, do a realignment roll and reduce one of my opponents, reduce my opponent's influence in a region, or make a coup attempt and like really try to like get them out of certain countries. And because, ultimately it is kind of an area influence struggle that you're like in this tug of war, a very, very tense card play. Because if I'm playing the US and I have cards in my hand that have that are Soviet Union events, that means if I'm playing against you, Mike, when I play that card for the ops, you're going to get the opportunity to trigger that event. So and it's like that feeling of having your opponent's cards in your hand and giving them the opportunity to trigger the event. Like you're always trying to like hold on to them till maybe that event isn't going to be effective or something. But like, there's just like, this is why the game is called Struggle, I'm sure, because every time you get your hand of cards, it's like such a tense struggle. But besides the event cards, there are also these scoring cards. Well, just 2 scoring cards. One that's an Africa scoring card and one that's a Middle East scoring card. And you don't know necessarily if a player has that card in their hand. So there's this tension of like, do they have that Africa scoring card, or is it still in the deck? When are they going to trigger it? Oh, I see them like building up their forces in Ethiopia. Like what's going on? So there are lots of like little things going on in your mind as you're kind of, playing
There's
through
a lot to
this.
Consider.
There's so much to consider. The map for Twilight Struggle is just huge. I think it's like a world map pretty much, So this one is just kind of 2 regions, Africa and the Middle East, and each region has, a certain amount of countries where you'll be able to add influence, and they're just little cardboard chits or tokens.
Right. See kind of who has the
so you're going to be trying to like exactly, you're going to be trying to get control of these different regions. Or prevent your opponent from having control of too many regions, and hopefully position yourself well for when a scoring card is triggered. But you also have like the space race track, which is awesome. That is also in the original Twilight Struggle game. And then you have again the DEFCON track that tells you the DEFCON status.
Right.
So that like the closer it gets to a nuclear war, it impacts other things in the game, other actions in the game. And then you also have the headline phase where, after you have your hand of 9 cards, you're going to pick one card face down simultaneously, and then you're going to reveal them, and you're going to trigger the events on them. So that's another like just kind of tough decision of like which card to use for that. But anyway, I think like this is awesome. Like the fact that you can have a Twilight Struggle experience on your lunch break, like in an hour or maybe even less, this is like a great way for new people who have ever, like if you've ever been curious to try Twilight Struggle, but super intimidated by the look of that crazy big board and like how long
so
it takes.
Much.
Like this is a great way to learn it or to play it on a weeknight, multiple times. Right. And it still has the same tension. I'm telling you, like,
yeah,
you will sweat.
Well, it seems like it keeps all that kind of core of Twilight Struggle perfectly intact and just really does do what you said about like zooming in on a specific area.
Yep.
And because of that, it can be scaled down in terms of time because you're going to be able to suss out, who's going to kind of control that area a lot quicker than who's going to control the world.
Right.
In Twilight Struggle. Yeah. And the fact that you can solo this has actually got me hope. And it's also, I'm not going to lie, Candice, you were talking about it. I started looking it up. And it's pretty affordable.
You're getting it. You're getting it. Order it. Do it.
I might. I know for a fact that Nick will have no interest in playing it. But if I can solo it, then I don't need him anyway. I can just I can take down the Soviets myself.
He might like it. He might like it.
He might do. The fact that it's so much shorter, I think will be a huge, because something like a Twilight Struggle is daunting to get into.
It's very daunting.
It's big and it's heavy and like knowing those event cards and stuff can be really important because you might just accidentally hand somebody a really advantageous position. And so being able to get those reps in, like you talked about, like maybe in a night I could play 2 or 3 times.
Exactly. Switch sides.
I mean, that's a great, it's not such an undertaking every time. That's really cool.
Yeah. And like the other thing that's really awesome about how they kind of made it more accessible is like on the board, besides the fact that the map is way smaller and zoomed in.
Yeah.
On the board, you also, on both sides of the board, you have kind of a player aid for every like action that's kind of complex, like different, like there's so much good reference material printed directly on the board. I think it's really well done. And, this is a game I was going to get and play anyway, but I'm actually going to be next week interviewing Jason Matthews for an episode of Cardboard Creations to feature this game. And I'm like really, really excited to talk to him about it. And, just like what went on in his mind from him and Ananda originally creating Twilight Struggle to getting here and making this like more accessible, quicker playing version of it.
Yeah. And it's kind of cool to see it like so long after Twilight Struggle came out. The game came out like 2005 or something. So it's like, way later.
Yeah.
That shows like the staying power of that kind of game. People have played and love it and discover it constantly still. And it's cool to be like, hey, here's some new content that stands on its own. So
for sure.
Maybe it might bring in a whole new generation of people that are into, GMT kind of war games and stuff. Very cool.
Yep. And this is not a war game, even though it's like it's more of a political.
It's a Cold War game.
Yeah, it's a Cold War game.
Yeah, exactly.
Just in case that scares anybody off, it's
no, it's not
more of an
not
influence,
the same level
push and pull kind of game.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool. So, should we talk about some board games with elevating art, Mike?
It's my favorite thing. I'm absolutely down. Again, art to me is just it can help so much for a game and it can hinder so much for a game as well. I think it's so crucially important for kind of bringing, at least for me, into a game and helping reinforce like how this game works and stuff. So when art is really done well, it can elevate a game, it can prop up a game, it can take stuff next level. I'm all in.
I totally agree. And I don't know about you, but I picked 5 games and I have like an honorable mention.
Same.
My games are not really in a particular order, but I will say the last one that I'll mention is the first one that came to mind.
Okay.
If that means anything, but yeah, these are all just. This was hard. I had a bunch and I kind of had to like narrow down because again, I'm trying not to like let this episode be like 3 hours or something crazy.
Yeah, there's a lot to consider though in terms of like when it elevates, are you saying that like it just again takes the next level, that is sort of a game that's there, but the art really kind of sustains it. And that's the best thing about it. There's a lot of things and ways you can kind of approach it. So I'm really curious to hear your picks to see if you have any of the same ideas.
Yeah, exactly. Like we might have gone in complete different directions with this or
I don't know.
Yeah, we'll find out. So I'll just, do you have any honorable mentions?
I do. I have one.
Okay. You go first.
And it's really just a way to sneak in a sixth choice.
I know. We're gamifying this. That's what we're doing.
Yeah, like you do. My honorable mention is going to be Everdell.
Ooh.
It's got, it's by Andrew Bosley, art wise. And I feel like Everdell really, along with like Wingspan, there's a few games around this time, but Everdell really ushered in like a whole era of games of like cozy games of like cute animals doing like human things games.
Right.
I mean, I can't really see so many other games existing if Everdell wasn't done. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
and like that
sure.
art has really sustained through several expansions, a big collector's box. I feel like it's a fine enough game, tableau building, worker placement stuff. That's great and everything. But like, if it didn't have the theme it has, this game to me does not make a mark like it does. But it's captured people completely because the world is just so beautifully rendered.
Yeah.
Of course I want to make constructions and bring critters into those constructions and stuff. You know what I mean? Like it's everything for me with that one. So that's my honorable mentions, Everdell. It's just I can't imagine what that game would be without that theme and that art.
That's really cool. Yeah, people love Everdell. This is one that like I've only played once. Ugh, I love the components. I love that giant tree and everything. And I didn't even like really think about it too much because I've only played it once, and I actually
sure
like I kind of had a lukewarm experience with it where I like didn't love it. But I know so many people that do love it, so it's one that I would be happy to like revisit at some point. But I 100% agree with you in terms of you're right, like the art and the feel of it really adds a lot. So that's
absolutely like it's a game that I'm kind of with you now. It's not anything bad. I've just sort of played it enough, but like I will always be interested in Everdell and Everdell stuff because of that art. Like, and so like, that's pretty strong, if it kind of keeps you thinking about it, even if the gameplay itself is sort of left your mind a little bit.
Yeah, totally. Good one. So I have one honorable mention as well. And, that is Inish. Remember Inish?
Yes, man, Inish has got the coolest art style.
Right. So,
it's a good choice.
Inish is like an area majority card drafting game with minis that's kind of set in this Celtic kind of world, and you're competing to become the king of the island, and you have all these. Well, number one, the cover is amazing, but you have these big, like oversized cards that you'll be drafting that have this like really awesome kind of illustration that has a Celtic flair. It almost looks like it's psychedelic. But it really
it is trippy a little bit. Yeah,
it really grabs you. But then there are also the tiles, like the territory tiles that you're building out. Like they have beautiful art as well. And to me, ever since I like first played that game and saw it, like it just really captivated me. And making this list and having this come back up reminds me that I need to bring this back to the table at some point. And I will just say the artist is Jim Fitzpatrick, and the person who did the territory tiles is Dimitri Belak, and Inish is designed by Christian Martinez and published by Matago Games. But yeah, that's my honorable mention. And again, it's something that this list has inspired me to like break that back out.
I love it.
Yeah, because
that's a great pick.
Thank you. The other cool thing about it is like it has multiple like different victory conditions. So I love games that have different victory conditions because it really like keeps you on your toes. Like you have to like watch what other people are doing. You have to kind of bluff a little bit and don't be obvious about what you're doing. And then boom, victory.
Boom. There you go. Yeah. The one time I played it, I did not win, but it was really cool. And the art, it was like just so rad to look at the cards. And there's a lot of stuff to consider in that game. That game is pretty wild. I'd love to revisit it for sure.
Totally. Okay. So now we're done with our honorable mentions. Let's get to the main list. You go first. You go first.
Okay. All right, you got it. I'm gonna choose Dreadful Meadows. This is a new game that isn't out quite yet. It was on Kickstarter, I think around, in the fall, around Halloween. It has kind of a Halloween-y theme. And this is what is so awesome about this game. The whole production really is just adorable. This is a game where you are making candy, your different kind of candy makers, and you are going to be kind of drafting these tiles that will be kind of valued 1 through 5, and based on whatever value they are, 1, 2s and stuff, you will produce a different kind of candy if you do a kind of like production action on that space. And what you're trying to do is produce this candy to fulfill contracts. The candy itself is also your money, which you can use to buy more patches, which increase your field. So you're kind of candy farming, and it's set in this kind of, almost Tim Burton-y, but, friendlier, I'll say, art style, where there's a character, the main character is this kind of like pumpkin-headed person who's a little bit Jack Skellington-ish and stuff. And, another person's like, this person is just a big eyeball for a head and stuff, but it's very kind of cutesy and approachable and fun. And so it's a perfect game for kind of evoking like a Halloween feel, but still being, not scary. And I love, and I'm just so enamored with the fact that we're just like these, like, candy makers and stuff, and growing candy on farms and like supplying it to the people and making everyone happy and stuff.
Oh, wow.
And the fact that like the kind of very colorful, vibrant Halloween aesthetic, to me, I'm like, this is now an like evergreen game that I'll play around that time of year, probably every year in perpetuity, forevermore.
Very cool.
And like, I was just captured by the art. Ultimately, a kind of a light but thinky, like puzzly kind of game, not too heavy, very accessible, but that art really just hammers it home and makes it just so charming. So that's Dreadful Meadows. It's got art by Paul and Claire Tobin. It's by Arcus Games, and Lucas Adams is the designer. And so it'll be one coming out this year, and perfect Halloween-y game. Love it so much.
Very cool. I hadn't heard of that one, but I looked it up while you were talking about it, and it looks really cool.
It's got some good stuff going on. Yeah.
Awesome. So the first one I'll bring up is Trickerion, Legends of Illusion.
Ooh,
yeah.
Good call.
Yeah, Trickerion is a Mind Clash game designed by Richard Amann and Victor Peter. And the art was done by Velo Farkas. And this is a heavy worker placement game for 2 to 4 players where you're playing as a stage illusionist and you're trying to learn different tricks and perform magic shows. Yeah. And to me, it's a great game. It's a great game. But the art and the vibe of the artwork and the illustration on the board and the color palette and everything, it just really hits it home, and it makes me feel like I am in The Prestige, the movie The Prestige, which
that's
I'm like,
exactly what I was going to say. Yes,
that's it. And like, there's so much detail to the different like worker placement locations, and then there's even on part of the board, there's a big like theater kind of where you have the stage where you go to actually perform the tricks,
right?
Or the illusions. But it's just like, it's a really great game. It is heavy if you're, right. It's not for the faint of heart. But yeah, if you like very like thematic feeling games, the art on this one just kind of really, really elevates it for me.
Yeah, it does a really good job of giving you that dated, in the early days of kind of stage magic stuff.
Yeah.
Like you said, the Prestige is perfect. It feels like it's from that era. It looks like it's from that era. And it's kind of cool to see games do that, where like, this is one I would describe as making beige beautiful.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. Yeah.
It's not automatically an ugly game. It looks like it's kind of from the past, and it sort of has that, sepia tone to it or something, right, that kind of, it just makes us think of like old timey stuff, but does it really well. And you're right. This is packed with detail, and they still manage to keep the worker placement spots clear,
right,
which is
right.
not easy to do necessarily, but you can see the whole town behind all these spaces. Such a cool looking game.
It really sucks you in. And that is Trickerion and Mind Clash Games, which came out in 2015. Wow.
Very nice. Yeah. That's older now. Yeah. Here we go. Very well done. My next game is a game that uses the art as the central thing you're doing is making art. This is Canvas. Canvas came out in 2021. It's by designers Jeff Chin and Andrew Nerger. Luan Hyun did the art, and from Road to Infamy Games. This is a game where you are painting canvases, you're painting art, and you have these these translucent cards that will have little bits of art. So it might just have one little feature kind of in the foreground, or a card that provides the background. And you're kind of ultimately doing set collection stuff, because certain cards will provide certain icons or colors and things, and you're trying to have once your painting is complete, you stack together a certain amount of these cards together into a sleeved and ultimately a sleeved card to complete your painting. You want to have certain things showing, certain things being avoided to kind of score the most kind of influence and points. But what's so cool is that by putting this one element of these cups that are in the foreground and this tower that's in the background and a person observing the tower, you can mix and match stuff and create unique pieces of art.
That's so cool.
Based on the cards that you kind of draft. And I think that is so cool. Like,
you're making
a game with amazing art. Yeah, a game with amazing art where you are making art, and you can take art that exists and make new art with it based on which cards you combine with which other cards. I think that's beautiful. I think it's so cool. The art style is wonderful. And there's just not that many games that are about making art. Right. And this game facilitates it. So you feel kind of creative because you put together something that like looks really rad. And, that's kind of uniquely yours. You might be the first person to put that exact combination of cards together. So
awesome.
It makes me feel like an artist when I play. And Candice is just, it's hard to beat. There's not many games that are more pretty than it.
Awesome pick. That's a good one.
Thank you.
So my next game is Cloudspire.
Ooh, good call. Cloudspire is cool looking.
So yeah, like this is kind of a more subtle one, but Cloudspire is a game from Chip Theory Games. It came out in 2019, designed by Josh Carlson, Adam Carlson, and Josh Wilgus. And you can play it with 1 to 4 players. The art is by Jared Blando and Anthony Latorno. And it's basically a MOBA style tower defense game that you can play competitively, cooperatively, or solo. And each player is playing this like as an asymmetric faction, and you're in this like floating realm, and you're trying to defend your fortress and then take down your opponent's fortress. But what's so cool about it is that the board is made up of these neoprene terrain maps that just have amazing art. And you set up a bunch of these little terrain path like neoprene mats all together to kind of build out the board, and you'll end up having like a kind of a stone path to each other fortress in the game. But then there are also parts that look like trees and green grassy areas and bodies of water and forests. And the art style on these neoprene mats is just really, really cool. Like, it kind of like just makes you feel like you're really like marching towards something, like you're on an adventure. And Chip Theory, I don't own it, but Chip Theory has this playmat that they sell for the game that is like, it looks like a blue sky with clouds. So then when you put the mats on that, like it feels like you're in this like floating like island kind of thing. And it just even more so like immerses you into like what you're doing in the game. And for anyone not familiar with Chip Theory Games, all of their games use poker chips as a core component. So So you'll have these like different hero chips and minion chips that have very cool artwork on them too. And then they have, I think they're like health and defense and underneath.
Yeah, you can kind of and they stack underneath. Yeah, and you have this like big old stack that's moving around that represents your character's everything, which is really neat.
Yeah, and like a lot of their games for me are like some of the like the best like tactile experience for gaming.
Absolutely.
Those chips feel so good to move around, and it's kind of like the gameplay can be kind of puzzly in terms of like who you're moving, when, and where. But like to me, that art on those neoprene mats is just so cool.
They do a good job, and I feel like it's not always easy to get really good like resolution, I feel like, on a neoprene mat.
Right.
Just because it's not as, it's harder to print on, I imagine. They do a really good, because they always rock the neoprene.
Yes.
And they do a really good job. And then even those chips themselves have cool art on them.
Yeah.
If you kind of take a second to look at just beyond the information that's on there. Cloudspire in particular, I feel like is kind of their high watermark in terms of the art and stuff. In terms of the boards themselves coming together, like, of course, Too Many Bones has cool, cute art in the different locks and
right.
stuff,
but
the gear locks, but
the
Cloudspire is tight,
right? But like the main board for Too Many Bones is just kind of like a grid, sort of. Yeah, you're not really getting that same flavor, and it just looks
right.
It looks epic, and like when you're moving your heroes through down the path and making your way around. And then also there are chips that you lay out on the board that represent like monuments, and I think like some kind of fountains or wells that you can kind of tap into and do some exploring and everything. So so that's Cloudspire. Good
pick. Yeah, Cloudspire is suitably epic. We and that mat, the sky mat is humongous. It's so big. But Cloudspire is a fantastic choice. My next pick is from 2022, and it's Flamecraft. This is one that, like, I started hearing people talk about this long before I came across it myself, and it started delivering to people late last year, and then we got to get a copy, and I see now why people are excited. So this is designed by Manny Vega. We have Sandara Tang as the artist, and it's published by Cardboard Alchemy, and then Lucky Duck Games helped kind of distribute it out our way as well. And this is a game, again, kind of, I was talking about Everdell, kind of ushering in this era of like cozy, appealing, sweet games. It's a game about like a world where humans and dragons are living like comfortably together and actually working together to the point where you have like artisan dragons who like, help like work in a blacksmith or bake bread and stuff like that. And the art is just adorable because you have like people, the different stores you're going to, because in the game you're kind of moving your dragon around from store to store to either collect resources or then enchant shops and kind of make them more powerful so they produce more resources for people. And it's just like, there's not many like board game worlds that I would want to live in more than Flamecraft. Where like,
true that.
If I can go over here and like get a salad and have a dragon like working in the kitchen, toasting stuff up and whatnot, I'm like, please let me live there. That sounds amazing. There's coffee and cakes and things, and life is just good. So
yes.
When I finally got to play this game, I was struck by like how light it is. It's incredibly light.
Yeah.
Very family weight game. You're either gathering some resources or kind of spending those resources to enchant those buildings. And then you can play some like dragon cards and they give you like a little bit of an ability and stuff as well. But there's not much that you have to really think about. So you just get to enjoy the kind of sweetness that this game is. And this is kind of my now moving forward go-to game to like introduce to someone who's interested to know more about board games, but they haven't played many yet. I'd be like, I'm going to start you right here.
Yep,
There's high appeal with the art. It's easy to get into and learn. It's just a home run all the way across the board. And the art absolutely helps sell it. Like, this game will create board gamers guaranteed.
Awesome.
And that is so, so cool.
That's awesome. Awesome. Flamecraft. Yeah.
Flamecraft.
Gorgeous.
Yes.
Gorgeous. And yeah, that is like a fun world. Like, I just for a second started imagining like living in that world. And you're right.
It'd be amazing.
Be happy. Yes. Very happy.
Yeah. The red dragon on the cover is just like flaming up a kebab. I'm like, oh my gosh, let me eat that, please.
Speaking of games that kind of can get people into the hobby, my next game is a party game called Dixit.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Talk about art. Yeah.
Dixit, man. Dixit was originally released in 2008. It won the Spiel des Jahres in 2010. And then I have the standalone expansion Dixit Odyssey, which came out in 2011.
Nice.
It is designed by Jean-Louis Rubera, and it's published by Libellud. I am probably I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right.
Yeah.
And the original game's artwork is by Marie Carduit, but then there are like tons of different artists that have worked on, Dixit has so many different expansions. It's a party game for 3 to 12 players where you have this deck of art cards. They're like, maybe they're tarot size. I don't know the exact size, but they're like kind of large cards that
they're beefy.
Have this like mesmerizing art. Some of them are like way better than others, but like the art on these cards is so cool. And each turn, one player is going to be a storyteller. You'll have a hand of these beautiful art cards. And then if you're the storyteller, you're going to secretly choose a card from your hand, put it face down, and then you're going to say a word or sentence or phrase that, comes to mind when you think about the art that's on that card. And then everybody else has their own hand of cards, and now they're going to have to pick a card from their hand that kind of fits that clue that the storyteller gave.
Right.
And when you're giving a clue as a storyteller, you don't want to be too obvious. And you don't want to be too obscure either, because the goal is to get at least one person around the table to correctly guess yours. But if everybody guesses yours, you don't get any points because of the way the scoring system works. And you're incentivized to pick a card that really fits well if you're, not the storyteller, because you'll also get points if people then vote for your card. And I guess I didn't mention that. After everybody puts a card in, storyteller's going to shuffle them up and reveal them. And then everybody's going to secretly pick which one they think is the storyteller's card. So if Nick is the storyteller, but Mike put in a really good card, I might pick Mike's because I thought it was the storyteller's card, But it's a really fun party game. That this was like a pre gateway game for me. Probably like this did not get me into the hobby. Like I still didn't know other games existed really, but
oh wow. Yeah.
But somebody told me about this game and I bought it and I brought it. I remember the year that I bought it, I took it to our Joshua Tree like Thanksgiving trip, and It was just such a hit, and it became kind of a tradition for any time we went to Joshua Tree for Thanksgiving. We bring Dixit, play Dixit on Thanksgiving Day. It can play with so many people, awesome. But the key takeaway is the art on the cards. The art on the cards is just so fantastic. It's just exciting to get your hand of cards and to like look at them. And then it's fun to think of like, ooh, what kind of clue can I associate with this card, Or like it's really cool. And again, like when I would start buying expansions for it, I would intentionally not look at like all the cards. I would just kind of shuffle it in and then be surprised when I draw them. And I'm like, oh, look at my new cards. It's a game that, look, it makes the game more memorable. Like when people think about Dixit, you are thinking about that art. And it's like, you could have had this game, this same game and had like some kind of like cheesier art or different art. But the art style just like really makes it pop.
I agree. And it served as like the inspiration for so many other games. Like so many other games use that kind of trippy, really interesting, and ultimately very beautiful kind of dreamlike cards.
Yes, dreamlike.
And I feel like every game that does that, you're like, oh yeah, it's like Dixit, right? Like that's the, like that's the Kleenex of that type of art.
Yes.
We're like, oh, it's like Dixit art, right? And like, yeah, I kind of like that. It's the thing you always measure up against. And yeah, good on it, because those cards are all insane and wonderful.
Yeah.
Like, how did you think this up?
I don't know, but it's like, it's one of those things where it's, my box is all like busted. I have like duct tape around it and everything. Yeah. And I just have like so many cards in there, but I'm still like, I think I'm missing some expansions. So I might need to.
There's a lot of content.
I know. I can't get enough of it. And I haven't played it in a while, but I feel like it's just a great game. You have a lot of people, especially with like non-experienced gamers, it's easy to get into and for people to just jump in and have a good time. So that is Dixit.
Very nicely picked. My next one is, it's again, this is sort of in order. I guess it's my number 2. But ultimately, I don't know of a game that has much better art, because this game actually started off as a world created by Mr. Cuddington. And this is Tidal Blade's Heroes of the Reef.
Ooh.
So this is a big old kind of worker placement, dice chucking, one of those kind of hybrid between an Amerithrash and like a Euro game set in this wonderful like water world with all these sort of like semi kind of anthropomorphized aquatic creatures that are beautifully rendered by the husband and wife team that is Mr. Cuddington. So
cool.
This game for me is so cool because it's a colorful, wonderful water world, and it's fun, and there's people that ride jet skis and they do like stunts, and you kind of do like American Gladiator style challenges. It's
awesome.
just a really fun, interesting world. But I love that this is produced by Druid City Games and Skybound Games and designed by Tim and Ben Eisner. I like that James Hudson from Druid City Games originally approached Mr. Cuddington and said like, hey, what are y'all working on art-wise? Like, what's a world that you want to create? And based on that, we will then figure out a game to fit in that world.
That's cool.
And I just haven't heard of something going that direction.
Wow, that's cool.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't think I have.
And I'm like, wow. And I like that on the cover it says like art and world building by Mr. Cuddington, because that really is what it is. Like you created a whole kind of mythos that now has spawned 2 other games and an RPG.
Dope.
All from like this art. And I'm like, I can't think of art that's been necessarily more impactful than for Tidal Blades, because that literally is the genesis of everything else.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's just really neat. It's a fun worker placement game where you're getting kind of a pool of dice and you are attempting challenges. As you roll kind of these dice faces on these, while you attempt these challenges, you'll get to up your skills in these 4 different areas, and you can kind of do more and more in the future. There's monsters that are invading that you can go fight, which directly leads into the part 2 of Tidal Blades, which is kind of a dungeon delving game. There's just so much to explore, but like the through line between all of it is that beautiful art. So
wow.
Again, talking about worlds I'd want to live in, I'd want at least vacation here. It seems lovely.
So
that's Tidal Blades Heroes of the Reef, man.
Oh man. So Mike, I have never played a Tidal Blades game before.
They're pretty fun. They're pretty fun. They're big splashy games. Yeah. They're kind of wild. Tidal Blades is an insane production. It's just very big and brassy and kind of wonderful. So I have Tidal Blades. If you're ever keen, I need to come
by for a game day with you guys.
Come
sometime.
chill.
Yeah,
we'll roll it out. We got the deluxe version. It's fantastic. Yeah, it was well worth the wait on Kickstarter. So Tidal Blades, Heroes of the Reef. I'm like, just keep coming out with stuff because big games, small games. They have Tidal Blades Banner Festival, which is kind of a card-based game.
Yeah,
it's
Nick told me about that. It's a trick-taking game, right? Yeah, that sounded awesome. Yeah,
it's awesome because it's still set in this world. It's a great world.
That's so cool. And actually, you bringing up Tim and Ben Eisner reminded me of Wonderland's War, which also has dope artwork. But
that's a good one.
I don't know how I didn't think of that for this list. But
there's no shortage of games you could talk about, really.
Yeah, we could probably do multiple parts of this conversation.
I'm down.
Wow, that's cool. And yes, I need to play Tidal Blades games, all of them.
Get after it. Yeah, it's great.
So my next game is Root.
Oh, good pick.
Right? Yep. Thank you.
Yep.
So Root, like, to me, and I could have easily said Oath probably too, but Root is a game from Leader Games designed by Cole Worley, came out in 2018. The art is by Kyle Farron, and it is so good. Yeah. Kyle's art style is just so unique and adds such a flavor to everything that he illustrates and touches. It's really cool.
Yeah, I completely agree.
But so Root, the base game, you can play with 2 to 4 players, but with different expansions. I think you could go from 1 to 6, and it is the most adorable looking war game.
It is. It's a vicious. It's a real vicious. Legit base off coin games war game, but it looks so sweet.
Yeah, it does look. It does look sweet.
It's not.
It is not. But in Root, all players kind of control their own asymmetric faction, and you're battling to gain control of the vast woodland. And each faction functions completely differently, and scores points differently. And the game is just like really awesome. And it has so many expansions at this point. I need a big box or something to store it all in.
Yeah, there's no shortage of content there, that's for sure.
But to me, the art really brings it to life and like gives it such a vibe. Like if you were to picture playing a game that has all the mechanisms and the gameplay elements of Root, but with like some kind of like different art or toned down art, it just wouldn't pop the way it pops. And that's not saying that like the mechanisms are great. Like the game is dope, but like just like that art combination with the game just really, really elevates it. The card art is fantastic. The game board, they're different game boards, but like the original one has like this forest and it has paths to these different clearings, and it's just really well illustrated. Then there's another side that has the snowy side.
Oh, it's so beautiful.
And again, like I could have easily said Oath, but I've just played Root more. And as far as I know, that was like Cole and Kyle's first like partnership board game baby together.
Right? Yeah. What a way to hit the ground running.
But yeah, so I had to get Root on this list.
Oh, that's such a good pick.
Thanks.
Yeah, Kyle is such a wonderful, distinct style. It's so neat, and like with Root, it kind of makes these critters, they're kind of scrappy. They kind of like, there's almost like a roughness with the way that Kyle draws that just works well for the kind of action you're seeing in Root.
Yes.
And the color choices.
Animates it or something. I think, yeah,
it's just so neat. It's really, really, just catches your eye. Like right away when Root came out, everyone was just like, or when it was first announced even, they're like, what is this? What's this little raccoon doing with a knife?
Yeah.
Like, don't worry about that.
Yeah.
Come on, go and get you in the dark,
Yeah, and you like, I don't know about anybody else, but like I can't think about Root without also thinking about this artwork, Like it's just like,
I fully agree. It wouldn't, and that's not to say that's not like a well-designed game. It absolutely is, but I just can't see it being what it is without the art and the theming.
Mm-hmm.
And because it's a brutal war game ultimately.
So what's your last game you want to mention?
My last game that I have to mention, I'd be remiss if I didn't. This is Shakespeare from 2015.
Ooh.
From Yastari Games, and Herb Regal and Arnaud Demeg and Neriak are the artists. This is a game all about putting on a play. You are Shakespeare and various members from Shakespeare's works as your actors, and you are trying to rehearse a play, get that script together, get everyone costumed up, and build a set. And so hopefully have the most prestigious play, so the queen will come to see your play and not your opponents. This game, like as a theater nerd growing up in high school and going to college for theater and stuff like that, obviously the theme has high appeal for me. And I did like Shakespeare in the Park during the summers and things. So there's just so much kind of like that captures my heart, but the art of this game is the coolest. It is it's all capturing people and stuff. And you have like certain people like the workers, like the seamstress and the set designer and stuff. And they're kind of like these, these workers and things, but all the actors that you can put your workers on and activate in the game are Shakespearean characters. So they're not like a person playing Puck. It's just Puck or King Lear. And to see, they're just all so perfectly rendered for like what Beatrice is from Much Ado About Nothing. I'm like, that's what Beatrice should look like. Like that's the style, that's the vibe, that's the energy, the attitude. King Lear is just like racked with like madness and sorrow, and like it's really evocative art. And I'm just like, they just captured it so well. They captured this world that I know and imbued these characters with life and the art.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I can't even think hardly of a better more perfectly tailored for me.
Yeah.
Art. So for me, this enhances the game so much to have these characters and like that you recruit. I can't get over it.
So Shakespeare, man. So Mike, I'm pretty sure the reason I own Shakespeare is because of you and Nick. Like, I think, like, I remember,
we've been
like,
talking about it for a long time.
Exactly. And like early on when I, got into the hobby, I was watching a lot of your videos, your top 10 videos you guys were talking about.
Yeah.
You influenced me a lot. And I got Shakespeare at some point. I still have not played it. Sad face, sad face. But I will tell you this, of every time that I go to like call games and sell games, I never sell that. Like
Wow, really?
I've never tried. Yeah, I've never once wanted to sell that because I want to play it. Like I want to play it real bad.
That's awesome.
I love that it's like a unique theater theme, and like just I love worker placement games. And like again, you guys have talked about it so much that I'm like, I really want to try this game. So thank you for bringing that up. Like I don't even remember. I know what the cover looks like, but I don't remember what all the cards look like. But that's so cool that it like pops for you like that. And now that's reminding me I have to play this game. I have to play it.
You do. If ever you sell it, here's the thing. You can sell it for a ton of money because it's woefully unavailable.
Oh, no,
but,
I'm not selling
unfortunately. So, I mean, you know, if you ever you're on hard times, you're saying you got something in the back pocket. But it's just beautiful. And again, it kind of speaks to like my sensibilities and my history with theater. It's just perfectly tailored. I mean, this game helped bring me into the hobby so much deeper because I was like, whoa, this theme seems like it was made for me.
Yeah.
That game feels like it was made for me to enjoy. And that game exists for everybody. There's some game out there for every single person out there that's like, this is for me and me alone. Shakespeare is that game for me.
Very cool. Very cool.
Yeah. What's your final game, Candice? What do you got?
Okay. So a little bit of setup. Last year, 2022, I was at a private gaming convention and I walked by a table where people were playing this awesome looking game. And I was like, what is that game? And that game was Feudum. Feudum. Feudum is kind of a beastie game. And I had heard of it, like I had heard about it before. And I just remember people saying, oh, it's so complicated. Oh, it's so complex. So I kind of never wanted, like I was never itching to really try it. I always thought the box cover looked cool, but I don't think I had seen it set up on the table in action. And it just drew me in. I wasn't even playing the game. So Feudum is a 2017 release designed by Mark Swanson and published by Oddbird Games. And the art is by Justin Schultz. And let me tell you, after I walked by that table, I became obsessed with I needed to play Feudum. And I started watching videos to kind of I started reading the rules. And I was like, I must play Feudum. I must play Feudum. I ended up getting a copy of Feudum. And then I was like, who am I going to play Feudum with? I found people. I happen to know a handful of people who really enjoy Feudum. So I was like, let's play Feudum. So I scheduled a game and we played a 4-player game and it was awesome. It rocked my brain and I wanted to play it more. So then I found other people who were like wanting to play it more. And then so I set up like a little like Discord channel with a couple friends, Let Feudum Ring. It's called Let Feudum Ring. And and I was like, hey, I want to play this game once a month. Who's down to play on like, I don't know, maybe it was like August 19th or whatever. And I wasn't expecting everybody to say, yeah, I'm down. So I ended up playing a 6-player game of Feudum on a Tuesday night. People showed up. They had no idea they were about to play a 6-player game of Feudum. And I was like a little bit nervous. I'm like, uh-oh, like, are we doing this? And we did it, and it only took like 3 to 3.5 hours. So I'll say that first.
That's amazing, really.
But there's a reason, and it's because I have a rule with Feudum now, and I'm publicly stating this now, even though I've said this to many people before, but I will not teach Feudum. I will not teach Feudum. I will not have a teach when I play Feudum. If you are interested in playing Feudum with me, you have to do your homework and learn the rules and like watch a video because I'm telling you, like the people who make it, like I feel like who have a rough experience with it, they're probably mostly people who are going and getting a teach of that game. And the teach can be really long and then you're overwhelmed and you go into the game and you're not going to have an enjoyable experience. But if you learn it on your own, at your own pace, and it's not even like that the rules aren't that crazy. Like you're not going to be like reading.
There's a lot of stuff going on.
There's a lot of stuff kind of going on together. But that's why if you like read the rules on your own or watch a video and then you come to the table, we can answer any like little questions here and there, but you just jump into the game, and it's such a pleasant experience. Every game that I've played, or just two at this point, but like both games I've played have been so smooth and fun because everybody just comes to the table and we're like, let's go. We play the game. And so that is my recommendation for anybody who's ever been interested in playing Feudum, who's been intimidated by like people saying, oh, it's so complicated. It's like real, like when you do it this way, it really doesn't feel that like heavy of a game. I'm actually quite shocked at like how it has like over a 4 complexity rating, because it's like
4.6. It's way up there.
It's different. It's a little different. And but anyway, I kind of got ahead of myself. So Feudum is an economic medieval fantasy game with some area influence and hand management and resource management. And basically you have this beautiful board. Oh, the board is beautiful. There are rolling hills, there are mountains and rivers and lakes. And one of the things that is, I will admit, like can be a little bumpy with Feudum is that there are some rules where like you'll travel on different waterways with different vessels. And because the art is so good, it can interfere and cause some confusion with like, oh, are those bubbles where my submarine can travel, or are those swans? But the art is just so mesmerizing, and the game board itself is a long board, so it's like not a really common size. And then you have these 6 guilds on the edges of the board, and it has this like really neat kind of economic cycling system where you can push and pull resources out of one guild to an adjacent one, which that's something that's different, but it's not like once you understand and you're like, oh, so if I have the most influence and I'm the guild master here, so I can push these resources here. Like, it's not that complicated.
Right.
And I say this, I play heavier games and everything. It can be very complicated for a lot of people, but I guess I'm saying it's more approachable than you would think if you kind of don't go in not knowing anything and go and sit through like probably an hour teach, and then you're like, what did I learned all this stuff and now I'm playing this game, I don't know what I'm doing. So if you can like learn it ahead of time and then go sit down, then your brain can sit there and just enjoy figuring out what you want to do and how you want to play versus like remembering like some of the different rules. So
yeah, I can absolutely second what you just said, because I played Feudum exactly once. I went into that game blind. I did not have a good time because it was so much stuff to it's so much stuff to be downloaded with at one time. I don't think it was actually that much like that hard to understand. It was just so many. Oh, because I was looking, I was like, what are the bubbles for? Oh, what's that over there? Oh, there's birds. Is that something you fly? And I'm like, and I got to the point where when we started the game, I was just like, I didn't know how the guilds worked on the outside. I'm like, that's how you do like the most of the points stuff. Right. And so I did not do well in this game. So I appreciate the way that you kind of laid out of how to approach this game. And it's actually got me interested to maybe give it another go and try to do that and really take in whatever parts I remember in my brain now, kind of learn it slow and then go into a game. Because one thing I did come away with from that game, having not enjoyed the experience so much, was like, man, I love the look of this game so much. It looks so amazing. And I didn't know what to do with any of it. But I'm looking at like all 4 covers from the main expansions all become one big piece of art. Like, it's incredible looking. It is so fun and kind of cartoony and weird.
Yes, all of that.
And wonderful. Yeah, this is a great pick. But I agree. I think the way you approach this game is very important because it's a heck of a slog if you're going in with no information and someone's trying to explain it to you. We played like a 5 or 6 player game. It took a lot longer than your game did. I'll tell you that.
Yeah. if you have people that like have, and I'll say like when I played the 6 player game, so it was me, I was playing my second game like maybe a month later, And then there were probably 4 people who had played Feudum a couple of times, but not in a while. So they kind of refreshed. And then there was one person my friend Jason, he always does his homework when he always likes learning the game before he comes over anyway. But I told him the rule. He did his homework. He showed up at the table. He actually crushed us too. Like we were
nice.
He was doing kind of like, I don't know, we were distracted, I would say. But he did a great job. And like I said, like it was just such a fun experience. Like you have these different like action cards and you simultaneously are going to pick one that you're going to play each turn and then you're going to do something and I'll do your action. So it can kind of move, but yeah, you have to have a foundation for how the guilds work together and just understand the different actions. But yeah,
I completely agree.
I love the game though. I really, really love it. And I need to get back to my monthly games of this, just to kind of keep it fresh. Cause it's like, I really enjoy it. The art kind of just like really puts you in a world and gives you, you're kind of immersed in what's going on because the art on the board especially is just so good. But the card art, the box cover art is also really, really awesome. Yeah. So
it's just a fun, funky game. Yeah.
Funky is the word.
Well picked.
Yes.
Yeah. But in a good way, in the best way.
Funky Feudum. Love it. Love it.
Yeah. There you go.
Awesome. Well, Mike, thank you so much for coming on today and talking about board games with elevating art. I'm so glad we didn't have any crossovers because it was like, it's a very subjective thing. So it's just cool to hear other people's opinions on, what games where the art, what other games art feels elevating in. Cause I'm sure you could survey 10 people and have, or more people and have, all different lists, which is really, really cool, which is really, really cool.
Yeah. That's the very best thing about games in general is like there's so many different types of game. There's so many different types of art styles and there's going to be something that appeals. I love that every game out there is going to be someone's favorite game and someone's least favorite game.
Yeah.
I think it's great. I honestly do. I think it's beautiful. And so, yeah, and we could absolutely, I've thought of 10 more games just even talking here today that were worthy of mention. There's so many more still.
Right.
So yeah, thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Yeah. It was great talking to you. We'll have to revisit this topic and I know we're both like so busy, but hopefully one day this year or at a convention or something, we can get some gaming in. Like I got to do Shakespeare. Let's make it happen. There. That's up there.
I love it.
Cool. Well, thanks, Mike.
No problem.
You've been listening to the Board Game Geek podcast, produced and edited by Candice Harris. Special thanks to Matt Fonda for editing and mixing our music. Be sure to visit us on the web at boardgamegeek.com. You can also find us on YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and Twitch under Board Game Geek. You can reach us by email at podcast@boardgamegeek.com. Thanks for listening and happy gaming!